You are listening to the Spent the Rent podcast. And now, here's your host, Patty Rose.
Hello, I am Patty Rose. Welcome to the Spent the Rent podcast. My guest today is Jason Kellogg, the host of the YouTube channel Country Boy Gas Garage. You and I have known each other for 20-something years. Both lived in Eugene, Lane County area for many, many years. It's funny because I think that we've always been friends in the community by being parallel, but we've never actually been more than just acquaintances. So I reached out to you and I was like, hey, I've been a fan of your YouTube channel. I want to learn more about it. I know that you did something wild. You took a bus, an old school church bus that was in the middle of the forest, and you said you decided I'm gonna take all my energy and focus on taking that thing and restoring it. And it kind of blew up, and a lot of people really enjoyed your journey. So I'm gonna give a little bit of a intro saying that talk about your YouTube channel. You've reached 45,000 followers. I think that's a pretty cool thing. You're staying, you're a local guy. It's kind of anybody that watches it will get it. It's a very humble thing. You told me that you record all your videos on your phone.
Yes. I did, it's pretty basic with just a phone.
Yeah, it's pretty incredible. And we'll get to that in a minute. Also, you're starting a second YouTube project chronicling your family's transition living in the Yurt. I hope we get a chance to mention that as well. So first off, let's just talk about, how you first of all got into the church bus. I know that's the most popular, the most memorable restoration. So the 1948 Ford F5 church bus that you found, where was it at?
It's up in Fall Creek, Oregon.
So you were just putting along and you found this church bus, and there's like animals living in it.
Well, we rent some land up there and that's where we built our yurt. And I mean, it's located in hundreds of acres of forest. And soon after we moved there, via the neighbors, or maybe my landlord mentioned something, but we'd heard word about this cool old bus in the forest. And I'm already into classic cars, and me and my wife had, briefly talked about how cool it'd be to find a bus or fix up a bus, with the schoolie craze and all that. And so one day we took a walk into the forest, and man, as soon as we saw it, I knew it was something special. Like I said, I'm already into classic vehicles, and this is a 48. So this is a pretty vintage school bus. So it's got this super unique look. And usually when you find an old car, it's been vandalized and, there's not much left of it. This thing was nearly complete. So, I mean, I guess it ran when parked 30 years before that. But it was all there. Everything was there. The glass was there. Everything was there. It just was decrepit looking because of all the moss and the foliage that grew up. And it was full of rats, which we had to clear out of there eventually. But yeah, as soon as I saw it, I knew it was something special. And I'm like, we need to, I need this bus. I need to get this bus, and it needs to be saved. It was just, pretty much rotting away.
Right. And you might have mentioned this, but what was it on? Whose property?
It belongs to my landlord. And come to find out, eventually we figured out the whole story. His friend had parked it there, like I was saying, 30 years prior. And he used it as like a getaway, kind of like, come out and play music. He was a musician. He played guitar out there. It was just his little getaway, but eventually stopped coming out to it. And it got more in disrepair. And at some point he said he did try to get somebody to come out and fix it, a mechanic, and they failed to get it running. And then it just sat there. So that's when I asked it, as soon as I knew or saw it, we asked the landlord. I reached out and said, is this something that's available?
Right.
What's the story on this? It's obviously been here for decades, and he told me that his buddy had parked it and then just never really come back for many years. So then I started, asking, would it be for sale? Is this something that I could acquire? And I knew that when I saw it, that it needed to be documented as well. It was such a cool, that I had to document it somehow. I didn't have a YouTube yet, but I'd watched YouTube, and I watched other, resurrection videos, other YouTube channels that, revival vehicles. And I'm like, I I think I could probably do this, and the bus was worthy of it, and so that's why I started YouTube. Literally I think the third time I ever videoed myself was the first bus video on YouTube.
I'm blown away still that when you got here, that you told me that you've done everything on your phone, because your channel is awesome. Like, it looks great. I mean, I wouldn't have you on. Like, I reached out because you've done something cool. It's super impressive. I really do encourage, even if it's not something that you're into. I'm not a huge car person. I mean, I drive a Kia, but I just think it's really neat, and I gave it a shot. So check it out, Country Boy Gas Garage. But still,
on that note, with the, ultimately with the YouTube channel, I made a video of the whole rescue, and it blew up on YouTube. And hearing back on those comments, a lot of the comments are similar to that. They're not even car people. They're not into old buses.
Yeah.
And a lot of the comments were like, what, I flipped on this video, 2.5 hour video about a bus. No way. And then they say, next thing you know, 2.5 hours later, here I am leaving a comment. I know
people really enjoyed it because, and it's fun. I think it's a lot of the way that you recorded them, the way that you just kind of straight up talk about what you're doing. I think it's kind of soothing to listen to a little bit. It's unique, and I think you got something cool. Obviously, it kind of went like, mini viral or whatever. And it's just, you and I have just known each other because we were about the same age, and we were coming up working, like starting out jobs, and, just different stuff. And I've seen you grow, and let's talk a little bit about your Yurt experience, because you mentioned that. So this whole bus thing really came from that, but you basically at one point just decided that you wanted to live more of a minimalist life. Is that the way you'd put it? I mean,
yeah, that's what kind of got us out there in Fall Creek was that, that journey was, before I'd lived off grid. I'd bought a property in West Eugene out by the reservoir, and I lived 7 years off grid, no power or nothing. Eventually I met my wife. The tiny house I was living in was too small. We decided to sell that property and relocate. And that's when we discovered that this Yurt was for sale. And we went on that journey where let's get this Yurt. Let's go. We ended up finding this property that was available for us to build the Yurt on, which is a blessing in itself, because it feels like we're ultimately going to buy the property, but right now we're just renting it. But it's so cheap, and it feels like it's our own property up there in the forest. And so that was my, we built the Yurt, and we've lived out there probably 8 years now, pretty much off grid. We do have electricity, but we're still, composting toilets and well water. I gather artesian spring water down the road for our drinking water, wood stove for heat.
You eat other people when you live that lifestyle. Is that correct?
I do what?
Oh, I don't know, but just slide that in there. No. So it kind of did. You ever watch the movie Captain Fantastic?
I've heard of it. I don't know if I've seen it. Somebody else had mentioned something about that.
It's like Viggo Mortensen raising his kids off the grid. It's really, really good. Yeah, and none of this is that out of the ordinary to me. I mean, I grew up in Oregon, and I always say I'm going to be really careful not to get political today, but I always say that the one thing about Eugene, it was a lot better when the hippies were still libertarians, because then everybody had the same beliefs.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of crossover between the hippies and the rednecks, and so I don't even know what it is. You say country boy, but I know that how did the name come about?
That's another thing is, now that I thought about it, now that the YouTube actually blew up, when I came up with that name, I didn't think I was going to get many views. It's one of those things, like, I could have probably came up with a lot better name. It reminds me of the band Korn. Like they look how big they blew up, but it's a pretty cheesy name.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. I love them. I love them. So the same thing, like I was like, I'm just going to pick something kind of like, and Country Boy didn't really represent me. There's this place called Country Boys Gas. It's an abandoned gas station.
Yeah.
Gosh, I'm spacing the name of it, but it's out towards Monroe. But it's a really cool setting. And I used to drive my old muscle cars or hot rods out there and park and take photos. So when I was starting the YouTube channel, I already had a lot of visual with all these photos and stuff. And I was trying to think of a name. And I'm like, I've already got all these pictures of my hot rods in front of this gas station called Country Boys Gas. I could just change the name a little bit and roll with that. And so that's what I did. Still not thinking it was going to blow up. Now I realize, I could have probably picked a more fitting name for myself. But that cool gas station, Country Boy Gas, is still there, and we still occasionally I'll drive out there and take some more photos. I don't know what the plan is with that place. I'd like to figure out what the ultimate plan is, because I'd like to get those old pumps or the signage or something.
Yeah, because at least you wouldn't have to change the sign.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you take it'd just be like McDonald's, just take it over. Yeah. No, and that's really unique, and I think it's really cool, and I think it reached across a wide spectrum of people that really appreciate it and really enjoy it, which is really cool. Obviously, 45,000 people is a lot of people, so it's really neat.
To talk a little bit about the YouTube journey and how that took off, because starting a YouTube channel with nothing, it's really hard to gain traction.
Yeah.
And so even before I started my YouTube channel, I'd already had people lined up to subscribe, because, well, the bus, it was such a captivating visual to see it, the way it sat there in the forest, that before I started YouTube, I took photos, posted them on Facebook. I think there's a couple sites like creepy things found in the forest or abandoned things that I found. It was a big site, and when I posted there, hundreds of people were like, "We want to know more about this bus." So I told everybody, I'm going to be starting a YouTube channel, and I'll make a video where I'll show more of the bus and show you what's inside of it if you guys come over and subscribe. And they did. So with my first video, as I was getting ready to make that first video, I already had 300 subscribers. Wow. Waiting to see what happened. So that's already a good little...
How long did it take for you to take it from basically where it could actually start, at least?
Well, it took... and I was slow going when I first made those videos. So the first video was I just went out there and showed everybody what it was. It was showed inside. Second video, I went out and cleaned it up, kind of, it was full of rat poop. It was a couple inches deep, and I had to work in there and try to get this thing to run. So second video, cleaned it out. Still not getting too many views, but, it's still worth doing at that point. I'm getting people interested, and they're kind of... Third video is when I start really trying to figure out how we're going to get this thing to run, because the motor was completely a rat's nest. I mean, I had to remove the probably 2 feet of rat nest material off the motor, and that motor was completely rusted up. I've talked to plenty of people that restore these cars, and they said they wouldn't even have thought twice of even attempting to try to get that motor running. But I see these videos on YouTube where they do, will it runs?
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is a perfect candidate. Let's see if this thing will run.
I can't even... So, I honestly, I haven't followed completely along. I mean, like I said, we've just kind of been friends throughout just acquaintances in the community that we've kept up on each other through social media through the years. I would imagine that we were even friends on MySpace back in the day.
Probably.
And so it's just really cool to see that you're following your passion and doing something that's really rewarding and being genuinely like your authentic self, which I think is really cool, because you've been vocal about that stuff, about online, about on Facebook. You've been somebody that spoke about just mental health, about the challenges of what it is to be a man. I don't want to get too off track, but
I'm just a regular guy.
Yeah,
that
totally.
The whole thing was
I just respect the hell out of you, and so I just think it's really cool to see you blowing something up and doing something that really it brings you calm too, and then also has been shared that brought other people calm. And I've never been a car person, but I have been a person. I'm a person. And so when somebody enjoys something, I really get a kick out of it, and I really enjoy that. So it's neat, but
it was weird. I knew there was something that more people needed to see. I didn't want to just do that by myself out there in the forest. I wanted to document it and share it, because I knew how much people love seeing those restoration videos on YouTube and cleaning things from, before and after kind of scenarios. And that's actually what, I think it was the 8th or 9th video is where I actually, so ultimately I did get it running. I was able to get that rusted motor to run out there in the forest, which is, I had to put oil in all the cylinders and let it soak because they were just rusted together. But eventually got that thing to where I could rotate it by hand. And once I could do that, I threw a starter on it, and I was able to start cranking it with a battery, and it would rotate. But then I put new spark plugs and poured gas down the carb, and eventually got that thing to fire up. And I was like, so that's when I was like, let's drive this out. And I knew, because with YouTube videos of rescuing cars, anybody could go out there and just hook a chain to it and drag it out and bring it back to the shop and do it. I was like, I'm going to do this in the forest with just, by hand. And that's what I did. I had to bring a generator out there and some lights and a shop back. And I just did this out there, cleaned up the motor, got it running. had to get underneath there and separate the clutch from the pressure plate with like a putty knife. It was all fused together, rusted. Same with the wheels, the drums, the brakes, they're all rusted. I had to pull the wheels off of it and, get the drums to rotate again. But this thing, I knew it was able to drive at some point. Got to that point, and I had to clear out bushes and cut down a few trees to make a path because the forest had grown up over the last 30 years. And so that was getting people more intrigued. They wanted to see this bus drive out of the forest. And so it was gaining traction, and I drove it out of there and drove it home. That first Will It Run video, kind of where I drove it out. And in that video, there's even like rats running around as I'm driving it out. There's still mice living in it, and it's still covered in moss. There's still ferns hanging off of it, and I drive it home. But the video that really kicked off everything was the first wash video. It was soon after that that I decided I was going to do the pressure.
You were going to do it with no clothes on too. The wash video, it was glamorous.
We had all kinds of plans, and
and for the audio listeners, the beard covers enough that you don't, you might not see everything, but it's still going to But so the wash video, it was real popular.
Well, that's the one that one. I don't know if it's considered viral by today's standards, but it went over 1 million views on YouTube.
Yeah.
It was getting, it just took off. Thousands of views every day. I was getting comments from all over the world.
Have you met Andy Melanakis? Just because is that what happens when you get 1 million views?
It definitely opened up a lot of doors and windows. That's for sure. A lot of things started happening that, sponsorships, and that's then the church. I got in contact with the church after that. That was what.
Which church?
The church, the bus, all of them.
Because that. You're saying it like it's a good thing, but that's that's a long conversation. I'm just so you're saying that it's a church bus.
Yeah.
So you got a hold of them, and where's the church at? Which church?
Well, so when we were cleaning the bus and getting it running and doing that whole thing, and then it started blowing up, I knew it was a church bus because it said Stafford Church on the side, but I didn't know anything about it. And to now, we're so thankful that nobody painted it over the years, because we would have lost that history. So I started searching up, the church, and I learned that they were still in operation. There was a 125-year-old Christian church still in operation up in Wilsonville. And I had mentioned something at the end of the video that I wanted to talk to them. But before I even got a chance to reach out to them, somebody shared the videos with them, and they contacted me. The pastor had called me, and he's like, I have so many questions. He's like, I didn't believe that was even our bus until we saw the church phone number on the side, and that is still our office phone number. So that's how they knew it was their old bus. But he'd been there. This is all before their time. But he did say that after they watched the video, that they kind of shared it with the whole church. And that one member spoke up, this elder Mary, that she said she remembered riding that bus, and her dad used to drive it, and they used to go to Sunday school in it. And when
is she a liar?
No. Yeah. No, it was, so after they told me that, I knew that, okay, I need to get this bus back there and make this the finale of the whole YouTube. That people had been following along with me getting it out of the forest and washing it. And I'm like, what do I do next? And then how do I keep this? I love the history, and how do I keep the story going? And when I found out about the church and that there was somebody that remembered riding it, I was like, how cool would it be to drive this bus all the way back to the church, a 400-mile round trip, and show up and have a reunion with some of the elders and learn the history? And when I mentioned that to him, he said, yeah, that would be amazing. And so that was the new mission. And, that took a while from going from, I don't know, it wasn't quite a year, but I had to go through the whole bus, redo all the brakes, rewire the whole thing, new exhaust, do new tires. And, that first video, the first wash video that, did over 1 million views, brought a little revenue. And I used that to right back into the bus. That's how, new tires and all that stuff. And the following summer, it was ready to be on the road. And we did it. We drove it all the way up there, met with Mary. She told us her story about her dad driving he drove a school bus for the Stafford School District, and on the weekends he volunteered to drive the kids in the school bus and take them to Sunday school. So that was really cool. And they had a newspaper clipping that talked about when the church acquired the bus, and they retrofitted it for the church in a barn down the road. And A woman named Barbara had done all the hand stenciling and stuff. So it just was one cool thing after another. Finding the bus was cool. Getting it running was cool. Driving it out, washing it and having that video blow up, and then driving it back to the church, learning the history. And then the YouTube just kind of grew with all that. So
where is that bus abandoned now?
in my driveway.
Nice. Yeah.
So, we'll get it out. We take it, we put it in the Junction City car cruise, the classic car cruise, and we do the Emerald City shakedown, and it gets so much attention.
Obviously I'm going to put on the flyer for these episodes a picture of the bus.
Yeah.
And anybody listening should go to countryboygasgarage.com to look, because, that's always good. Also, if you'd like to support my podcast, you can go to STRPOD.com. That's an acronym for Spent the Rent podcast. So STRPOD.com. But it's really neat. I want to talk about the yurt. So, it's funny that you, like you said, you moved into the yurt and started living the yurt life before the bus, but the bus is what you're known for. And the second YouTube, is it a different channel that you do the yurt stuff? Or is it, talk about that.
Well, it is kind of strange because when we moved out there, and I'd already lived off grid for a while, and then we moved out there to be off grid and just kind of do that whole lifestyle. My muscle car and hot rodding and all that kind of stuff was like way on the back burner. I had a few projects and stuff, but that wasn't my mission. I was doing the whole off grid yurt life.
First of all, for anybody that's unsure, because I want to make sure that this isn't like a wild, what is that movie called? Where the cult living. No, I'm just joking. But what do you mean? I mean, a yurt life? So living off grid, meaning like no real, you got electricity, or is it all solar electricity?
Before I moved out there, we were off grid, with no power, but this location did have power, which before I lived pretty much by myself, so I could kind of rough it more. But now I have a wife and daughters and kids, and we have a new son. So having electricity has definitely been helpful. But we're always without power, due to storms and stuff, being way up there in the forest. So I fall back on all that other stuff, the, generator and stuff. But, yurt life, I guess it was, we live pretty modestly. I don't make a whole lot of income, and we're trying to figure out housing and everything with the way things are. When you don't have a whole lot of money, you're really limited. And it's like, before I took this route, I was pretty much living in RVs or in friends' garages, or, we'd share a house with roommates and stuff. So when the yurt, we paid maybe $11,000 for it. I mean, for a house, I put probably another $10,000 into it, but still $20,000-ish for a home. Like, I mean, that we actually enjoy being in. A $20,000 home would maybe be a mobile home somewhere, park or something. So
no, I mean, it's insane.
And then how do you continue living like that? Bills got to be low. You can't, so we pretty much rely on a wood stove for heat. We try to keep everything to a minimum. Our hot water heater is like $100 propane hot water heater. The pump, heats all of our hot water for the house. We have a shared well that we use with our neighbors, so we don't actually have to fork out all the money to have a well put in. We're already utilizing that. Just trying to keep everything. Trying to stay out of debt. We're not, we live debt free.
Living within your means. I mean, it's kind of, unintentional connection, because, this is the Spent the Rent podcast. And I do just stories of the underrepresented, and just people that you're not sitting here asking for. I'm not going to get into the politics of anything, but you're not sitting here asking for, people to cry for you. You're like loving this. Like, this is what you're choosing, is to live minimalist. And I think that's the point that I want to get across to the fans or the audience, that I really recognize, that I've always respected about you, just because you kind of talk about it in a cool way. Because like doing these shows, it's weird. It's hard to do because you're literally just chronicalizing what's happening. So when you say like, here we are, we're making food, I think it's neat that you have just gone for it, because you've done a good job with it. And the videos are really, they're captivating. So they're really interesting. So
Well, that's why I started the second YouTube channel, which, is a kind of play off the other title. It's Country Family Forest Homestead, which is another long YouTube channel. But I knew it's, and I was told, when with YouTube, you kind of want to separate your niches, because that's when I was like, I'm making the automotive content, the classic car content. How do I I know that people are intrigued with the yurt and off-grid and tiny house, all that stuff, homesteading. How do I incorporate that? So that's when I was like, I'll just have a second YouTube channel and do that. And I've seen a lot of YouTubers have two channels, and they'll do different, niche content. So that's kind of why I started the second one. I try to make it more, I guess, less edited, more of just, this is us, kind of just family vlog style. I haven't really been doing a whole lot of videos lately. I've been super busy, but it just kind of, we go into that whole lifestyle more, trying to keep it minimalist, and we want to do things to make it to where more sustainable. Like we have a small vegetable garden, but we're improving on that. We've got chickens for eggs, and we got.
Don't tell people you have eggs. Right now, that is a hot commodity.
We're actually expanding our chicken coop. We're gonna get ducks.
Nice.
We're gonna expand the
hush about those eggs.
But that's nice. We're clear up in the forest too. That's another thing. I don't know why. I just wanted to get away. And it's I
could imagine a few reasons.
I grew up in Eugene. I'm a street kid from Eugene, but I had this drive to just get out of the town and get out into the country and live sustainably. It's hard to be completely, and I'm just as addicted to modern devices as anybody.
Yeah.
And especially with my kids and my wife and everything, we don't even get TV reception or Wi-Fi or anything up there. We have probably 200 DVDs that we go through. I do get hotspot on my phone, which we connect to our TV, and we could do Netflix on the TV and YouTube on the TV now. So I feel like we've made a little bit of progress.
Sure. Yeah. And sometimes the good thing is that I think that there's some work being done to get more internet access in rural communities. I mean, on both extremes of politically too, because I know that Elon Musk is working with Starlink, which is gonna be huge. And then I know that, that's I don't know, actually. I think
my neighbor is actually, he's been raving.
But it's happening locally, because I know FiberNet is going in places that, in rural areas, maybe not, but the point is that sometimes I've talked to politicians about internet for equity for internet. And what they say is sometimes the rural communities have the best internet because they got it last. Do you know what I'm saying? So it's the most modern, right?
Yeah.
So,
I've seen them running Ethernet or whatever up our Little Fall Creek Road or out that direction. But like I said, we're so far beyond that, and then we go up like a mile of gravel road, and we were inquiring if it's going to come up our road, and they're like, no. Like that'd be like another $100,000 to go up your road or something. Like, so all the people out on the main road are getting it, but but I do everything from my phone. I've done all my YouTube.
Yeah, I love it.
Everything from my phone. I used to think I needed more of a setup in the beginning, and I kind of was like hesitant, but I was like, I'm just going to, and literally the first few videos, I was placing my phone like in a nook of a tree and using it like a tripod. Like I didn't even have a tripod.
Yeah. So. It's interesting. I mean, I put up these videos, and I do different ways that I put them together. This is going to break the fourth wall by talking about it on the podcast, about how the podcast is made. But, and it's just, these programs are frustrating because there's all this pay to play stuff nowadays, and that you have to keep buying new things to keep up with the different updates. And I don't know. I don't know.
I'm using a 3-year-old Android phone, and I've up to 46,000 subscribers now, and I've made 2.5 hour documented videos.
I can't believe it. That's wild.
Yeah.
And anybody that's made content, knows that that's wild. I'm surprised because just in how you have to edit splices, then put it together and make this full video, and it's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
Kind of weaving between the different apps. So okay, what else do we got before we're gonna get out of here? So talk about where people can find your merch and your videos. Where's the best place? It's just really YouTube, but you do have a website, and but your YouTube channel is where you would probably want people to start, right?
Yeah, that's basically where everything is happening, is on my YouTube. I do have Facebook and TikTok and stuff, but that's kind of just fun goofing around. But YouTube, Country Boy Gas Garage, and the video about the bus that I try to get everybody to watch is the, I guess it's the thumbnail's titled "Most Epic Revival Ever," but I think it's the title is "Let's Drive This Abandoned School Bus Out of the Forest" or something. But it was posted about a year ago, and it's a 2.5 hour video. But I swear, everybody that watches it loves it. A lot of the comments were like, older dudes saying they were brought to tears at the end. But when I finally meet Mary and learn the whole story, they're like, I had,
It's more than just a bus. I mean, there's
so
something
there's a
about
whole
it,
history, and I try to make a whole vibe and feeling with the music and bring the viewers like on a journey, kind of.
Yeah.
So
I just can't get over that it's not on a phone, and I love it. But I like what you're doing, and I think it's really fun that you just have put something out that's really genuine. Talk about real quick before we get out of here, maintaining a base. I mean, do you care? Because I want to talk about something first. I do really appreciate when I get donations, and if you'd like to donate to my podcast, you can go to strpod.com, strpod.com, and you can make a donation to. There's a few different ways to do it, and it really helps me. But I also don't care, because I will do it no matter what, and I love it. And so when we talk about these things like maintaining a follower base, we get hung up on numbers. How do you process that stuff?
Well, it's definitely been a roller coaster because, like I say, and I had pretty good luck for YouTube at the beginning. It really took off, and I don't want to say it was easy, but like a lot of people struggle for years.
Yeah.
And things were happening in months for me. So that happened really fast. And then now it's really I don't want to say taking a dive, but the views have really dropped. There's an algorithm, and you got to really put out videos on a regular basis. And I, with the homesteading and the family and the day job, the YouTube kind of falls to the wayside sometimes. And so the algorithm has changed, and I've lost a lot of views. So the income started going away. So I realized this isn't something I can just
it's not sustainable to, yeah.
So I had to keep my day job. But I realized that like you're saying, I'm still going to do it. And something that comes to my mind is that I have kids. And how cool would it be when you grow up, you could go back and watch videos of your parents, or they're going to acquire my vehicles maybe someday, and they're going to be like, how do I fix this old bus? And
that's kind of rad. Yeah.
Yeah. So even if I'm not making money, I'm making documented memories that my family and kids.
Oh, no. I think it's art too. I really do. Your style of production is different, and you do it on your phone, but you put a lot of heart into it.
Well, you come from a music background, and I've always been into music. I used to want to be a musician. So when I made the videos, I tried to make it kind of like a music video or a vibe. It takes you, I've always thought, I loved watching small films, stuff like that. So some people just make a video of them talking and they put it out there. I tried to put, music and imagery that kind of involves you more into the video. So yeah.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's obvious in your work. So Country Boy Gas Garage, Jason Kellogg. Hey, it's really cool to have you on the Spent the Rent podcast. My show is designed to be a representation of Oregon and just show all the different types of people. And there's so many misconceptions about our state, and it's so funny. I am, like I said many times through this episode, I'm not a car person, but I definitely don't need to be when I see somebody light up about how much a car makes them so excited. That part I really appreciate too. I mean,
yeah,
I don't know. I mean, I think everybody to an extent is a car person. Everybody, likes to go fast and likes, the old stuff.
Yeah, I like. I'm a history buff when it comes, and I hang on to things forever. The classic car that I'm driving now, I bought in 1991 when I was 16, and I'm still driving it 34 years later. So the history and the old stuff, it intrigues me, and I feel like those old cars and stuff, they have a history with them, and I like. That's been my passion, is just to revive an old car that people have kind of let go to the wayside, and bring it back to life, and then people enjoy it, and yeah, I get a kick out of it.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you for listening. I'm Patty Rose. This is the Spent the Rent podcast. Props to Jason Kellogg and the Country Boy Gas Garage.
Thank you.